Hello and welcome to the latest PortuGOAL podcast. Today it's a very special podcast because World Cup is just a few weeks ago, 3 weeks away, just 3 weeks away from now, and we're all pretty excited here in Portugal Towers, and all Portuguese fans in Portugal, of course, and all around the world are really looking forward to seeing what our Seleção can do in Brazil this summer. So, without any further ado, let me introduce my fellow podcasters today. This is Portugal expert extraordinaire, Nathan Motz. Hi there, Nathan. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks so much for having me again.
Okay, no problem. And also, we have another Seleção expert, a prolific tweeter about anything to do with the Seleção, as well as FC Porto. A little bonus there for Dragons fans. It is Simon de Souza. Hi there, Simon. How are you?
Great, Tom. Glad the World Cup is on the horizon.
Yeah. Okay. We won't talk about Porto, I promise. Okay.
Thanks. I've had a lot of heartache, so we'll skip that today.
Okay, so let's get straight into this discussion. Quite a few topics to talk about, as you can imagine. And I think the best place to start is probably having a look at the squad. Paulo Bento announced the squad last Monday, almost exactly a week ago. And as ever on these occasions, it was really an omission which probably caused the biggest talking point. I am, of course, talking about Ricardo Quaresma, who came back to Porto, and despite Porto's very poor season, as we just alluded to there, Ricardo Quaresma really did, you have to say, impressed greatly in those 3 or 4 months he was back in Portugal. Looked back to his best, especially in the Europa League, scored some fantastic goals. Most people were expecting him to be in the squad, but he didn't make the cut. Okay, first of all, perhaps Nathan, what do you think is the thinking behind Paulo Bento not choosing Ricardo Quaresma? And in general, what are your thoughts about the squad?
Yeah, I think that the decision here really is 2 things. It's squad unity and it's tactical cohesion. In my opinion, Bento obviously wants to structure his team around Ronaldo, and that means that certain players have to sacrifice in other areas of the pitch. And I think most people would agree that Quaresma is not one to be the guy to kind of sacrifice, what he wants to do in order to support a player who's better than him. Quaresma wants to be kind of the star of the team and have what the team's going to do function and rotate around him, and that was never going to be the case with Portugal. So I think Bento knows that, and as we all know, was very pragmatic and was unwilling to risk being a case of where Quaresma possibly robs some of Cristiano Ronaldo's chances to make an impact against our opponents. The squad as a whole, I think, really has enough quality to cover over the fact that he isn't there. I know many people would disagree with that. We do have some wingers who are returning from injury who are in poor form, and there was a lot of good discussion on the website concerning that. But overall, I think this is a really strong squad. A lot of good mix of youth and veterans. I think we're going to be one of the more seasoned teams. There's a lot of things going for us, in terms of just international play restrictions. And managers are always complaining about how they don't have enough time to build a cohesive unit. And Paulo Bento's been playing with this basically the same group of guys for a few years now. I think that offers us a major advantage. So I'm really not too worried, even with a talent like Quaresma out of the team. Obviously, I'm more worried about Ronaldo and Pepe's fitness if I have to say anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll definitely come on to that topic in a while. It's interesting also that you talk about the experience. This is actually Portugal's oldest ever squad at a World Cup. Not a great deal of difference to some of the other squads, but statistically speaking, if you sum up all the ages, divide them by the 23 men, you get to Portugal's oldest ever squad at a World Cup. So, and like Nathan just alluded to there, very very cohesive squad in the sense that it's been practically the same team now ever since Paulo Bento's taken over. So that could be a significant advantage for Portugal. However, having said that, of course, Quaresma, like I said, has put in some really terrific performances for Porto in what is a very poor Porto side. And I think one legitimate worry of some Seleção fans is that this particular set of players tends to perhaps lack a little bit of creativity. And for that very reason, a lot of people were calling for Quaresma to go into the squad. Maybe he could create something out of nothing, as it were. Simon, okay, you're a big FC Porto fan, of course. You've been watching him very carefully since he returned at Christmas. Have you got the same viewpoint as Nathan?
Pretty well. I would agree with what Nathan had to say. It's obviously not his exclusion's obviously not for strictly footballing reasons, because he's blatantly probably the second best winger in the team. As we know, Nani played, I think, 10 games this year. He was out most of the year. Vieirinha had an extended injury, and he was outright better than Silvestre Varela. So his exclusion is definitely not for the obvious footballing reasons that we'd all think, because anybody watching FC Porto games, as I was, they would pick Quaresma 10 out of 10 times better than Varela. So I would have to think that it's simply just he won't complement Ronaldo that well. Quaresma, as we know, likes the ball at his feet. He likes to make the plays that change the game, so on and so forth. And in the end, my best guess is that it takes a ball away from Ronaldo. That could be my only thinking. I mean, I still believe he deserved a spot in the squad over Varela, certainly. I think I would still probably start Nani, as crazy as it sounds. Sadly, so much of this squad is put together just blatantly on reputation. With all the injuries and out-of-form players that Portugal's had the past few months, and even this past season, so much of this squad is put together simply on reputation. Like, I'm going down the list right now. Eder was hurt most of the year, but in form. I think he's a good striker. Plastica is currently hurt, I believe. Nani, as I said before, he was hurt and out for most of the year. Vieirinha as well. So much of the squad is put together just on reputation. I really hope Paulo Bento's gamble and risk pays off, taking these players that haven't played much, and that they can use these 3 weeks together to kind of catch some form, which puts so much extra weight and importance on these friendlies coming up that they really have to get up to speed and get clicking as a team so much quicker than other teams. Even though this squad has played together for years, they've been out of form so long with their club that I hope they don't lose their unity that they had.
Yeah. Okay, it's a very good point. Let's move on to that right now. Of course, the big fitness issue, which you mentioned a few there. Of course, Nani, Vieirinha, Eder, of course, and now Pep and Postiga at this moment, as well as, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo. They've all had injury problems this season, or quite recently in some cases. What's your take on this, Nathan? For instance, Ronaldo. We're all used to him being pretty much a machine. It's absolutely amazing how little he does get injured. If you think about it, the amount of rough treatment he comes in for, and the amount of successive games he plays, high pressure games, season after season, he really does. It's an incredible record that he doesn't get injured more than he has been in his career. But the signs haven't been too good in the last few weeks. He's missed a few games for Real Madrid. He played yesterday, of course, scored the final goal in Real Madrid's Champions League victory over Atletico Madrid from the penalty spot. But I think we could all see he was nowhere near 100%. What are your feelings, Nathan? Do you think he's saving himself? Do you think these 3 weeks will be enough for him to get back up to full speed?
Yeah, it's really difficult to say because me and Simon were talking about earlier. There's a lot of secrecy in the Real Madrid coming from Real Madrid concerning his injury. They're using a lot of vague terms, like it's muscle fatigue, and they've mentioned that it's the thigh area, the quad or the hamstring, maybe some knee tendonitis issues, and the prognosis for that kind of injury over the course of 3 to 4 weeks is good. So we can be hopeful about that. The question is, if Ronaldo does regain, he recovers his health from the injuries, what kind of match fitness is he going to have? Is he going to be able to play in the friendlies? And I think that's for me, that's the biggest concern, is that he'll go into the first game against Germany just not able to perform to his maximum level because he's not fit enough yet. And you have to remember, we're playing in a really demanding environment in Brazil, especially in our second game against the U.S. in Manaus in the jungle. So there is some concern there with how well he'll be able to recover his fitness, even if his legs do manage to recover from a long season. So that's what has me thinking. I mean, I think that I think 3 or 4 weeks is good enough time, but he's really going to have to get some work in these friendlies, and I just don't know how able he's going to be to do that.
Yeah. Okay, Simon, here's a thought. We're all worried, okay, especially about Cristiano Ronaldo, just the amount of games he's played and his fitness issues, which have just surfaced in the last few weeks. But you mentioned it earlier. Look at Nani, look at Villarreal, look at Eder. Those 3 players have hardly played this season. Could this actually be an advantage? I mean, instead of coming into the World Cup with 50 or 60 odd games in their legs, they could be coming into the World Cup. Well, they will be coming into the World Cup, with 5 to 10 in the case of those 3. Would that actually work out as a bit of a secret advantage for Portugal? Maybe they'll be a lot fresher than other players who are coming off the back of a long, hard season.
Yeah, it definitely could. I believe most of them are just about to full fitness right now. Maybe Postiga is still hurting a little bit, but compared to Ronaldo, who just put in a full season and essentially played 90 minutes in every competition, they'll definitely be coming in a little bit fresher. Paulo Bento, that's what he has to do in this 3 weeks, is to get their form right using the friendlies. So I think these friendlies will be more important than usual to find who's going to be the outright other winger. I'll probably lean that Nani will get the advantage to that, but possibly Villarreal can come up and steal the spot. So they'll definitely be maybe a little bit fresher, and they're all healed off their knocks. But it's still a little worrisome how some of these players have played so little this past season, and they'll probably be used normally still.
Yeah, that's right. These next topic on our list of topics to discuss was precisely these friendlies, and it's interesting what you say there, Simon. I suppose pre-World Cup friendlies, normally the remit would be, okay, let's get the side, the side which is going to start the first match, working cohesively, working together, get them working on their routines, and so they can really hit the ground running. This time it might be a little different. I suppose, like you just mentioned there, probably the chief goal of these friendlies is looking after the fitness of the players rather than looking at tactical issues. Do you think that will be the case, Nathan? What do you think Bento can learn from these friendlies, or how do you think he could get the maximum benefit from them? Portugal, of course, play Greece next week, their final game on Portuguese soil, before going to the United States for a 10-day training camp, where they'll be playing Mexico and the Republic of Ireland, 2 games that Nathan will be watching in local. What do you think then, Nathan? How should Bento approach these matches?
Well, the first concern has to be to get key players like Ronaldo and Pepe match fit. So the physical rehabilitation has to begin immediately for them, after which time they hopefully can be integrated into the squad and get some playing time in these friendlies. So I think that has to be the first concern. But kind of like we've been talking about, many of the players in the squad, are going to be lacking match fitness, having just returned from long-term injuries or just having suffered losses of form. Nani, Varina, Postiga, and many others are going to have to, you can argue even Neto from Zenit, who hasn't played consistently throughout the season, are really going to benefit from seeing playing time, just in case they're thrown into the fray in one of these games. They need to be ready. So it's going to be a demanding physical environment in Brazil, and I think one of the key determinations for any team at the World Cup will be how their athleticism serves them. And I think Bento is aware of that and is going to need to prepare the squad to play in a very demanding physical environment and climate. So that has to be a concern. The good news is tactically, I think we pretty much already know what we're going to do. So we don't really have to use these friendlies to figure out exactly how we're going to approach each game. Some squads are going to have to do that. Like for instance, Mexico, who we're going to play in Boston, I think is going to be kind of searching for the best tactical version of their squad they want to take to the tournament. We don't have to do any of that, so that gives us an edge, I think, in these friendlies, and we can focus more on just the fitness of the players.
Yeah. Very good point. Yeah. Okay. I want to move on the discussion a little bit now to talk about the squad. I talked about the fitness issues. I think for most people outside of Portugal, looking at the national team, what do they see? I think it's quite obvious. They see one person, and you can see it in a lot of analysis and opinions in the international press. Portugal is pretty much considered a one-man team or Ronaldo dependent. Simon, do you think that's fair? And I suppose obviously he's the best player in the world and he's Portugal's most important player, but exactly how important is he to Portugal?
Well, I definitely think it's a fair assessment to say that Portugal is Ronaldo dependent. Anybody who says that would just refer back to the game against Sweden, where he had 3 goals and essentially just carried Portugal into the World Cup himself. So it's fair to say that that we are Ronaldo dependent. Sadly, I would say we might even be dependent on him even more this tournament, just because of the question marks in the other spots on the field, specifically on his opposite wing and whoever will be playing the 9th spot. These injuries have caused definite concern. So, and now he's even not at 100% himself. But Portugal's absolutely dependent on Ronaldo. It is fair to say that about the squad. Not that there's other talent around. The midfield is definitely very talented, and I think the key to Portugal, I believe, this tournament comes through William Carvalho. But obviously, the goals will come off Ronaldo's foot. But it's all going to start in the midfield with William Carvalho.
Very interesting, Simon. That was actually the next point. Let's move on to it straight away. Who, in your opinion, then, are the other key players, over and above Ronaldo, of course, who you think can really make a difference for Portugal? You mentioned there William Carvalho. Why do you think he's so important?
Well, he's the type of midfielder that we haven't had in quite a while. See, most of our midfielders, they are good on the ball, but they're often small. They can be pushed off the ball sometimes with quite ease. So I think William Carvalho brings a different dynamic where his finesse isn't the greatest, but he has the strength and stature to ball win in the midfield, to go into 50-50 tackles and come out with the ball. And it almost seems easy for him. He's one of those players that somehow manage to get themselves in the right position all the time. Like, he doesn't even have to go to ground to win the balls. He just steps in front of players, cuts off passes. It almost seems easy for him. But I think his strength and his stature is badly needed especially when Portugal is going to be pressed back defending. Is they've been so small in midfield. Moutinho, Veloso, small players, and a wing backs as well. Pereira and Contrao. They're not big physical players. They do have a great touch on the ball, but eventually you're going to need some strength in defending, and that's the dynamic that William Carvalho is going to bring.
Yeah, very good point. I can only agree 100%. Of course, I don't want to bring up too much of a painful memory for you, Simon, but I'm sure you remember, of course, the Sporting against Porto game here at the Alvalade, which I went to see that game in person, and Carvalho was just absolutely incredible that game. You know, against a quality team. For all Porto's problems this season, we all know they're very high quality, other than Fernando, but William Carvalho, like you said, just made it look easy. I think you actually put your finger on, in my opinion, his biggest quality. He's such a young player. He's got fantastic positional sense. He always seems to be in the right place at the right time. And then when you're in his strength, his timing in a tackle, he really does make a big difference, I think, in any team he plays on. And I think even against Sweden, everyone talks about Ronaldo, and rightly so. That was just an absolutely astonishing performance. But of course, if you remember well, quickly from Ibrahimovic, and they were wobbling a bit, and Paulo Bento brought on Portugal and kind of gave the platform for Ronaldo then to go on and get 2 more goals and tie up the win. I'd agree with you there 100%. I'll be very disappointed if William Carvalho isn't a starter. Which, of course, that's another thing we have to wait and see on Bento, because this midfield trio of Miguel Veloso, Raul Meireles, and João Moutinho have been coached. And to be fair, they've done a good job. But in my opinion, I think you can't leave Carvalho out. Nathan, apart from William Carvalho, can you point out another 1 or 2 or 3 key players who really need to be at their best for Portugal to thrive this summer?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Nani, actually, because we've talked a lot about Ronaldo's fitness issues. We've talked about some of the other attacking players that maybe have struggled a little bit. Eder coming back from long-term injury. Helder Postiga's had back problems since moving to Lazio this spring. And I think Nani has a couple things that he really needs to consider long term for his career ambitions. He's been kicked around a lot in the media for the fact that he was even selected for the squad, given that he had a really awful season due to injuries and loss of form. We have to remember he's probably going to be sold by Manchester United this summer. So this is going to be kind of like an open market window for him to demonstrate what he can do. And I think those factors make him a key player. He needs to step up into not only his role for the national team, but to consider how his performance in this World Cup is going to affect his marketability this summer as he's looking for a new club. So he's the first player that I think is really going to be important to balance out Ronaldo on the other side of midfield. And then I definitely concur with the two of you about Carvalho. I think he's going to be key in the midfield. Ultimately, I'm not too concerned about the midfield because I think Moutinho and Meireles and Veloso, their club form notwithstanding, I think when they put on the red and green for Portugal, their form is immaculate. So they've played really, really well, and it's really hard to criticize that part of the field. But when you look at defense, I think that's really where we have some aging legs. And I think for players like Bruno Alves and Pepe and whoever comes in for them late in the game, like Neto, it's going to be key that we develop some defensive cohesion in these friendlies, and that those players in our back four play well in this tournament.
Yeah. Okay, good point. Yeah, that's a very good point you mentioned there about the fact the midfield trio. And I think, to be fair, most of the players under Bento, they really do seem to be at their best when they play for Portugal. I think that's also one of Bento's greatest qualities. He seems to get the best out of his players. I think most people seems pretty much unanimous opinion that João Moutinho has had a pretty disappointing season at Monaco. But of course, whenever, like you said, whenever he pulled on that Portugal shirt, you wouldn't know it. He's just his superb self. Okay, we're going to have a quick look now at the opposition. Portugal, of course, in maybe if not the group of death, certainly a very, very tricky group, a very tough group, no easy matchup this. They start off, of course, against Germany, in exactly the same way that they started off Euro 2012. Next, they play the United States, and they finish off against Ghana. So, Simon, what do you think? First of all, answer me this question: do you think it was beneficial for Portugal? In other words, playing Germany, which there's no doubts about it, it's the toughest match had. And in general, what do you think about Portugal's chances of getting the better of either Ghana and the United States, and maybe even Germany?
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult group. Starting off with Germany again, they've really taken it to Portugal the last two tournaments. I would say 2008 they beat us, and 2012 they beat us as well. So they've given Portugal a ton of issues. But as Nathan and I were speaking about before this started, I think that this Portugal's time finally to get their crack at the Germans. At worst, I think that they could definitely get a tie. I'm going down their squad list right now as we speak. Their midfield is definitely stacked up and down throughout it. Any way you cut it, they have class players coming off the bench, every substitution if they want. But it's their forwards where they're really struggling. They've taken Miroslav Klose, as Nathan said. He's definitely aged now. Mario Gomez did not make the team at all. So I think they might have trouble playing with a false nine. So I'm assuming they'll be starting with a five-man midfield, and they'll all be rotating through that false nine spot. But they have as well struggling with injury concerns. So I think we've played them enough and seen them enough now that Portugal know what they have to do to get a result against them. They almost had a 1-1 last time if it wasn't for Neuer robbing Silvestre Varela point blank late in the game. But I think they definitely know and have seen the Germans enough that they know what has to be done to beat them. And I mentioned to Nathan as well, I wonder if Bayern Munich getting killed in Champions League semifinals the way they did, I wonder what that does to their national team squad. Now, I know, like, off the bat I go, well, that has nothing to do with it, but so many of these players on Bayern Munich will be starting. I wonder if that changes their kind of mentality or confidence or team dynamic at all, just how it's in the back of their mind, kind of like how Barcelona and Spain have done it for so many past years. Like Spain just using that Barcelona midfield three, and how they just play the same for Barcelona, play the same for Spain. They just seems like whatever match or whatever jersey they're wearing, they put in the same performance and they just simply win. I wonder if Bayern Munich losing out will shake up their team confidence a little bit. As for the other two games, I'll touch quickly because I spoke so much on Germany. USA seems to be bringing in kind of a squad refresh. They have some new players, left some old names out, as we all know. So possibly they can be struggling to find an identity. That's absolutely the key game of the tournament, though. Hopefully Portugal are going into that game with at least a point in the bag, but if they're not, they absolutely have to take that game. Ghana, of course, none of these games are easy. That's tough to close out. They'll have a lot of speed and stamina, as always. So it's I think the key to having an easier life in this tournament will be getting a point off Germany.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. I think most people would consider, of course, German big favourites to win the group. So I think on there, it could actually be decided who joins them. Could actually be decided on who manages to get something from the game against Germany. Nathan, would you agree with that? And also, just answer me one other aspect. You mentioned earlier about the physical aspect of this tournament and the fact that the climatic conditions, especially, is likely to make this very, very exhausting on the players taking part in this tournament. Ghana and the United States, in terms of technique and just the skill levels of those players, you'd probably say that Portugal has the advantage over them. In terms of physical prowess, maybe not. Do you think this could cause a problem for Portugal?
I do think it is a problem for Portugal. Again, like I mentioned in the climate, very difficult playing environment for all teams. And I think being in the U.S., the big news coming out of the U.S. men's national team training camp has been the decision by manager Jurgen Klinsmann to bring some more youthful players, and I think that that's possibly a signal of his intent to bring to bear athleticism on this group. And I think for Portugal, like you mentioned, being the oldest team in the group, they have to consider we face two very physical teams in Germany and Ghana, and then a team that in the United States that while they're not known for their technical flair, they are known for their athleticism. So I think those are going to present some matchup problems for us that we need to take seriously. I would agree with Simon. I think we have a good chance to get a result, at least against the Germans. I think they struggle up top, not having an informed striker. I think the Ghanaians will present a major physical challenge for us at the end, but I think our success or failure will hinge on the game against the United States and whether we're able to win in Manaus and in the Amazon. I think that is going to be our toughest game, if not on the field, just in terms of competing with the weather. And I think if we can get 3 points from that game, I think we make it out of the group.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting thoughts. I'm just looking forward to this more and more. By the second. So, just to finish up, I'd like to ask you both a couple of questions. First of all, what do you think is the #1 X factor, if you will, that will decide whether or not Portugal have a successful tournament? And then a quick prediction from you. How far do you think Portugal will get in Brazil? First of all, Simon, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I'll start off with the X factor, and I'll probably lay the X factor on fitness and or suspensions. I think our starting 11 is extremely competitive, as it has been in all the tournaments past. But once we start getting down the names on the bench, that's where the quality definitely drops off, in midfield as well. So I'm definitely going to say the X factor will be staying fit throughout the tournament and not picking up any suspensions. I think that's why Portugal showed so well at Euro 2012, is they didn't pick up any suspensions, and I don't believe had any injuries. So if we can keep the same starting 11 going every game, I think that'll be our X factor, and we'll be able to get results. As for my predictions, I always hate these as always. So, I see how all the players speak, and they want to take it step by step, get out of the group and then see how it goes. And it seems like all Portuguese people answer like that. And I'd love to say I want to raise the cup, but realistically speaking, I think this squad can reach for the quarterfinals, semifinals. This is probably Ronaldo's prime and our best chance to lift the trophy, but it seems like this tournament is just set up so perfectly well for Brazil. I don't know if anybody's going to get in their way. So, I'd be confident in saying a semifinal visit.
Okay, well, it's very surprising that, of course, you've got Portuguese blood in you with such optimism. Not at all the usual Portuguese trait. But good to hear. Let's hope you're right. How about you, Nathan? Do you agree?
I do agree, and I think that I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that our X factor is actually all of the players who have been in poor form for their clubs and who have come back from injury. I think the general consensus amongst the media is that we have possibly too many players that just haven't done well enough this season. I think we go as Ronaldo goes. Our hopes. Go as Ronaldo goes. But I think for many of these players, it's really going to be about how well they show up in this tournament. Like all the players we mentioned, Nani and Varina and Eder, Luis Neto, and many others. I think that's going to be our X factor. If they play well, I think we go far in this tournament. And I would say a quarterfinal, semifinal berth is not out of the question. But again, I hate making predictions in this tournament because again, one key injury, like for instance to Ronaldo or another key player, and things can be very different. But I think quarterfinal. I'm going to say quarterfinals for now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Okay. For what it's worth, I'm going to actually say that the X factor, in my opinion, for Portugal in this World Cup could actually be their defence. Of course, Portugal are known for being a flair side, having lots of beautiful attacking football, but it sometimes goes unnoticed that they actually usually do have a very good defensive record. And I think in this group especially, I think it's going to be very tight, and I can't really see lots of goals. I think there may actually be quite a few draws, 2-1 at the most. And so Portugal have had the same defence, or quintet if you include goalkeeper PortuGOAL, for quite a while now. And if they're all on their game, that's a pretty solid unit. Pep and Alves in the middle, Coentrão and Pereira on either flank, Rui Patricio in goal. And then if you take William Carvalho, giving them a good shield in front of them. No, we're all worried about where the goals are coming from Portugal, but in a short tournament, you don't actually need a stack of goals to go far if your defence is really up to scratch. So that's what I'm hoping for. My prediction, I've been living in Portugal for 20 years, and so the pessimism has kind of infiltrated into me a little bit. And I'd love to see Portugal go like Simon said to the semis or even first, but I really can't see them going past the quarterfinals, where if things go as most people would expect, they'll probably be playing Argentina, and I think that may be one step too far. Anyway, plenty of time between now and then to see how the preparations go, and maybe give 1 or 2 pointers to what Paulo Bento is thinking about in terms of his starting lineups in Brazil. Just leaves me to say thank you very much to Simon and Nathan. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay. Cheers, Nathan. Enjoy the matches in the States in a couple of weeks.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Okay, and of course, we can keep track of Portugal's progress throughout the summer at the site www.portugal.net. We'll be having special reports all throughout the preparation and during the tournament itself. I'll be at the match against Greece next week. Nathan, like I mentioned, will be at the Mexico and Republic of Ireland matches. We'll try and grab 1 or 2 thoughts from some of the Portuguese players. And of course, thank you visitors and readers to the site for all your fantastic feedback. It really makes for some superb reading everyone's opinions on the site. That's part of the fun of it. And until the next one, até logo. Okay.